Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Ref the District. It is playoff hockey time. Some exciting times. Now, the Caps are the 8 seed going up against the 1 seed. But, hey, this is playoff hockey, gentlemen. You can just throw the records out the window. Anything's going to go. And tell me, Stoner, on a scale from 1 to Ovechkin scoring a game-winning goal, how excited are you?
I love hockey playoffs more than any other playoffs, except probably NFL, because that is such a one and done kind of deal. Hockey playoffs are like nothing else. The intensity is unmatched. And when your favorite team is playing and you got the greatest player in the world, there's nothing like it. I am excited. I'm at an 8, right? You said it was 0 to Ovechkin level was an 8.
Yep.
I'm at an 8.
You're full on 8. That's great. Trev's prepared. He's got the hoodie, even though it's like 80 degrees out right now.
It's cold in my house.
Washington's going to be playing down in Florida this series, and you know it's going to be even hotter there, but it's going to be even hotter right here on Ref the District as we welcome Sammi Silber from Washington Hockey Now and Peacock TV. It is the first lady of hockey, Sammi Silber, joining us here on Ref the District.
Howdy. Thank you.
What's up, Sammi?
Oh, wow.
What up, Sammi?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It has been some time since Sammy's been on the channel, and since then, she's been verified. She got super fancy out there on the Twitterverse, covering our Capitals as they went through the season. Did this season kind of live up to your expectations, or did it leave you wanting as we head here into the playoffs?
It was an interesting season. It was strange in several ways. I think also it was getting used to the fact that COVID is still a thing, but at the same time, COVID protocols kind of went back a little bit. So we haven't had the, no fans in the building kind of like bubble hockey feel to it. So that kind of came back. But at the same time, it was still very much real as we had a lot of rides this season. We had injuries happen. We had Backstrom at the beginning of the season. We had a ton of rookies make their NHL debuts, score their first NHL goals. I think a big portion of the roster was Hershey Bears at one point coming up. Baby Caps playing some hockey. And then you had COVID outbreak, maybe like middle of the year, like December, January, as my dog scratches up my carpet. Sorry about that. And it was just very interesting in the fact that you saw a team deal with, the adversity that teams see, but you also saw them deal with different issues beyond that, inconsistency, question strike in regard to goaltending, what works, what doesn't work, up and down lineup. You had the trade deadline bringing a couple of new assets, but they're kind of not so much the high-flying top line talent, but more so the defensive forward aspect. So a lot to consider. Considering the adversity, you still had a team live up to the expectation of making the postseason. Even though they find themselves in a very different position than they have been in years past. They are now the wild card and not so much the top seed going up against the underdogs. So the tables are turned. So definitely an interesting season with a lot of storylines. And I think we have a lot of that going, into the postseason. So I hope that was an answer.
It did. It was great.
It did
let us right to Trev's question, actually. One of those storylines.
It felt like a TED talk, but yeah.
No, you're good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, Sammi, Alex Ovechkin, Ovi, missed the last 3 games due to health, but it was on record saying if it was a playoff game or those games were playoff games, he would play. Is that health a serious issue, or is it just because to save him for the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, so I think when injuries happen, especially to a guy like, who doesn't, the big guy doesn't go down that much, I mean, but at the same time, I mean, what happened in the game, because I mean, we all saw it, we saw him go very hard into the boards and go down, and Washington, the entire city kind of collectively held its breath, right? Waiting for him to get up. It was a good sign. He was able to skate off under his own power. And, when he missed those final 3 games, because, Ovi he hates to miss time. You talk about a guy who he doesn't like to be out longer than he needs to be, but he rested up and he's been full go these last 2 days. He's been going hard in the drills. He's in his usual spot. He's ripping those one-timers from the office. And to me, he looks good. He looks like a guy who was dealing with the day-to-day thing. I think a lot of the injuries and their severity, that really comes out after the season. I think that nobody, if something is seriously wrong, they're still not going to scream to the heavens and say, hey, I have injured insert. It's going to sound awkward. Insert body part here, but what I mean. I think that considering the way he's practicing now, and the precaution that you want to have, especially for a player of that caliber, he hit the 50 goal mark. He's leading the team. He's having one of the best years of his career in his 17th NHL season. I mean, you want this guy to be as healthy as possible. You don't want to risk aggravating at anything, whether or not it's serious, but from the way he looks and the way he's talking, and Lavi said that he's heading in the right direction. He looks good out there. I mean, I think he'll be full go for game one, and he looks fine to me. But
nice.
Yeah.
So, Sammy, let's get to know our opponent a little bit, right? The Florida Panthers. They were the best team in the NHL, the President's Trophy winners, right? 122 points on the year. They were 58, 18, and 6. That's an absurd record, regular season record. I believe they had the best home record. They only lost like 6 or 7 games at home, I believe, which is, again, absurd. What is it about this team? Because I look at the Florida Panthers for all the times I've been watching hockey. They're the Florida Panthers, and they've always been terrible.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to understand that all of a sudden this team's great. They're the best team in the NHL. What is it about this team that makes them so tough, not only at home, but, I mean, again, they had the most points in the league.
In general, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're a heck of a hockey team. I mean, from the way that they're built, their entire all-around roster, the depth that they have. I mean, it's not just, you have the guys like Huberdeau and you have the guys like Barkov, and, Ekblad's getting healthy too. I mean, you have those guys who have been staples on the core for a little bit of time as the team, kind of evolves into itself, into this big-time contender. And you have Burnett take over behind the bench and do an excellent job, and coaching the group, having them play the right way, doing the right things.
Former Cap, right? He's a former Cap.
I believe so.
Yeah,
See, I believe so, but it's the way that they work as a group, and then they have the additions that they made, in the past years and even this year. I mean, you have Sergei Bobrovsky in net. He's been not around Florida forever, but really hitting his stride now with Florida a couple years after coming in. And Spencer Knight, as the rookie backup, still insanely talented in net. You have Claude Giroux coming in. That's a kind of a big name, just a teeny bit of a big deal, but you had them load up at the deadline, so they come in with even more depth. They're a team that's scores a lot of goals. They have great special teams. They do the right things on offense. They can lure you into a run and gun kind of game. And when you get into a track meet with that kind of team and you don't do the right things, you don't play that tight game, I mean, you're gonna get beat. You're gonna get outworked and you're gonna get outdone. And Washington also, they faced them 3 times this season, but it was all in the same month. It was all in that little part of November, kind of near Thanksgiving, kind of near the end of the month. So it's not like it's a familiar opponent either. It's
a completely different team now.
Yeah, it's a completely different team. It's one that loaded up at the deadline, and they haven't really faced the Claude Giroux edition Panthers yet. But even without that edition, they were pretty dang good. So there's a lot of things that you need to do correctly, and there's a lot of things that you need to do well, and there's not one key to success against them. It's not, be physical and we'll win. That's not, that can be, a key against other teams. Like, we need to do A, B, and C and we'll be fine. That's not how it is against Florida, because they have so many different things that they do correctly. So I think that's a pretty good summary on them, is that there's not one thing that summarizes them. There's a myriad, and it starts with their star power. It starts with their coaching, their offense, their special teams. I mean, they do everything right. They're the kind of team that is a favorite and has done everything to deserve that title of a favorite.
Well, you and Stoner are definitely doing a great job pumping them up a little bit. But let's talk about our Caps. You brought up Florida's scoring ability. We have 3 goalies. And how do you think that they're going to be played this postseason? Do you think they're all going to get a chance? Do you think that the coach is going to go with the hot hand? What are we looking at from the Capitals goalie situation as we get the first dog of hockey here?
Is that Ovi?
I'm so
your dog's
sorry.
name is Ovi, right?
This is Koozie. I'm sorry.
No, it's Koozie.
Hi, Koozie.
I'm sorry. Okay.
That's
Dogs
right.
are great
Koozie
for
makes
interaction, engagement. It's perfect.
She's like, she was sleeping just before I got on here, and then she was like, I'm gonna wake up because I'm on the show now.
We're talking about the Caps. She's excited. It's playoff hockey.
I know. Go over there. Go do something else. Please go do something else. Okay, good. No, so with goaltending, I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, Laviolette's playing his cards very close to the vest, I think is how he referred to it on Sunday. As he should. I mean, there's, a lot of questions. Sorry, she's messing with everything. There's a lot of questions with regards to what's going on between the pipes. You had Samsonov and Vanacek. You had the team go with this young tandem again. You saw Vanacek really pick it up, kind of near that trade deadline portion where it was kind of a comfort to see him emerge and the Caps to be at the deadline and be like, you know what? I think we can stand pat. I'm comfortable with what we have. I'm comfortable with going Vanacek, Samsonov in the playoffs. And then there was a little bit of a step back. And neither goaltender has really been able to claim that number 1 spot. Just ignore her. I'm sorry. You guys are never going to invite me back again. And then, but you have both of these goalies literally split the season down the middle, right? And there's not a starter yet for game 1. Fucale, who came up yesterday, is the third. That's kind of like a standard protocol.
Okay.
There are some fans who look at the situation, they read into it, and they're like, oh my gosh, they called up a third goalie. They're blowing it up. I don't think it gets to that point unless neither one of them can take the hot hand. In the experience that I've seen with playoff hockey, that's usually when a young player steps up and hits his stride. Whoever starts, if you paid me $1 million right now and you said who's starting tomorrow, I couldn't accept the money because I couldn't give you an answer because I personally do not know.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't. I mean,
that's not good.
I know.
That's not
Take
good.
away my first lady of hockey title now.
No, I don't mean that part that you can't name it. I mean just that you don't have.
Yeah, exactly.
No, for sure. I mean, it's not. I don't know if it's like. I mean, a team like the Capitals has been able to see success with a tandem of 2 goaltenders. It's not natural or something of the ordinary not to have a starter going into the playoffs in mind. But it truly could go either way. I mean, you've seen Vanacek step up and earn his role, and you've seen Samsonov, who he gets chances and comes up with highlight reel saves, and he can go on a hot streak, but then can go on a cold streak. I mean, same goes for Vitek, but you have 2 young guys, and I think one of them, I mean, I know one of them is going to start tomorrow. That's how hockey works. You need to have a goalie dress. I mean, one of them's going to start, and then depending on how tomorrow goes, if it's a bad loss, I think they switch it around for next game. If it's good, they'll ride the hot hand. But you see flashes of greatness in both. It's just a matter now of who takes it. Fucale, I think, is if all goes,
if we see him, things are really, really bad.
Yeah. If hell freezes, that sounds very morbid. If nothing works out, if somebody gets hurt, then I think that's when you see Fucale, when your back's against the wall.
You talked about before we started on here, you talked about how you're getting kind of a 2010 vibes with this team. Yeah. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I remember a young Sammy who didn't know she wanted to be a hockey writer. I don't know what I was going to be back then. I don't know. This isn't my life philosophy story, but back in 2010, when I was watching, it was the President's Trophy winning Caps going up against the 8th seed Montreal Canadiens, who everybody thought, Caps have got this cup in the bag. They got a lot of star power. They're built. They're ready to go. And that ended in a Game 7 loss to the Habs, who I think, if I'm remembering correctly, went to the conference final that year, but fell to Philly, I think, if my memory serves me well. But I'm getting that feel. I'm getting that President's Trophy up against the scrappy wild card feel to it. And I don't necessarily know why. I don't know if that's just me, dealing with middle school trauma coming back,
Right.
or if it's like a feeling, but I see grit in this team. I see grit in this Capitals squad. I see a team, this group that has experience, and I see a Florida team that has a lot of star power, but not a lot of success in the playoffs kind of experience, kind of similar to teams of Capitals past. So a lot going on there, and something to watch for sure. But that's the feeling I'm getting. Maybe it's just a vibe. I don't know.
Well, I'm hoping we are all hoping that that's how it plays out as
Yeah.
well in this particular series. You bring up something I wanted to talk to you about, which is
Yep.
the experience that the Capitals have and that chemistry. They've been playing for a while. They have the playoff experience. How is that going to come into play in this series against the top team in NHL?
Well, I think it has to, right? I mean, I think when you have a group like you do this year, a group, like the Capitals, who it is a veteran group. It is a core, filled with a bunch of players with a lot of different experience. There were a lot of rookies on the roster at one time. It's not really a team made up of a ton of rookies anymore now that the roster is, getting kind of healthy. You see even Marcus Johansson, he came back to DC, he was away for a few years, but you feel that old nostalgia core coming back a little bit. But when you have a team that experienced some inconsistencies, maybe suffered a little bit of a skid to end the year, you end the year on a sour note. You have 4 straight losses. Your special teams let you down at the end. You're without your captain. You need to kind of go back and rely on that experience, rely on that veteran core that says this is how you win a playoff series. These are the right things that you do. Playoff hockey is a different animal. You can look at regular season records all you want, and you can, shout till you're blue in the face, that Florida has the better record. But when it comes to the series, I mean, 0-0 right now, it's tied. No, your record goes away in the playoffs. It fades because anything can happen. It literally, like, one bad night can put you down in a series or put you up, by 2. If you had a good first night and the other team, craps out in the second game, you can go up 2-0 because the other team just ran out of gas. I mean, there are so many things that can sway, and that's why a veteran group serves you well, because you have that experience of, okay, we've won, you have quite a few members too of the 2018 squad that we know what it takes to get far. We know what it's like to do this. You have other guys who won, the cup with other teams who said, this is how it worked with you have guys that have lived up to the durability, who have played the game. It's a lot of games. I mean, if you add it up and if you go all the way, you can play, up into another quarter of a season. You can go longer. Like, it's 20 more games under your belt. It's a lot of stamina. So I think there's no other option except to rely on that veteran group that you have.
So speaking of that veteran group, besides the obvious Ovechkin choice, what player on this Cap squad needs to step up and kind of take this team to the second round and beat the Florida Panthers?
I mean, that's a good
If
question.
there's more than one, you can name
because
them.
There's a lot. I mean, you need your goaltenders, and they're not even the veteran guys. They're the not the kids. I mean, because they're 25 and 26, but they're young, inexperienced goaltenders in your own right, and they have to step up and they need to shut it down, because that's a lot of star power that you're going up against. And then you have guys like Kuznetsov, who's having, an insane revenge tour of a season, and had that Conn Smythe-worthy year back in 2018. He needs to bring that same, hot streak that he's had this season over to the playoffs. I mean, that's the ultimate completion of the revenge tour right there. You need Osh to chip in. You need guys like Backstrom to chip in. I mean, the same guys who do usually show up, but you need that secondary scoring as well. So, Anthony Mantha had, despite last year's Caps Bruins series was a little bit interesting because you didn't have too much offense, but you did have a lot of like attempts from guys like Mantha. I think Mantha like led them in shot attempts. You need that energy from him again this year, especially, he was the return for Verona. So now you have that hole to fill. You need guys like, you need your defensive forwards to step up. So like Johan Larsson, who's been filling in for Carl Hagelin, you need him to keep filling that role. Lars Eller, who's been so-and-so, but he's heated up at the end of the year. You need to keep that going. You need to win faceoffs. You need to be physical. You need to have a good, penalty kill against this team, because I think they had I'm seeing if my stats, don't fail me now. I think they had the 5th best power play in the league to end the year. And the, top goals for, Florida this past year. So you need to be able to shut them down. And it's not just going to be, Ovechkin can score this many goals.
Right.
That's fine. He can score, goals all night. But if you're not shutting down the other end of the ice,
what good are all his goals?
It's you're going to get into a run and gun, and that's how teams lose to Florida. I mean, that's
so it sounds like Stoner. Her answer is everybody needs to.
Everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody needs to step up.
Everybody. Yeah, I mean,
everybody.
It is what it is. Yeah,
I would say everybody. Yeah, I mean,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, let's look into your crystal ball. How is this playoff series going to play out?
Come on, Sammy.
Sammy.
Come on, Sammy.
Data predictions, man. Feel like I can't even remember what I had for dinner last night. Now you guys are asking me to predict the playoff series.
Well, this isn't the past. This is the future. You
Yeah.
can look into that future.
Yeah. Meanwhile, what am I having for dinner later? I'm gonna go Caps in 7.
Wow.
And the reason I'm gonna do Caps,
Let's go, Sammy. Let's go.
and the reason I'm gonna do Caps in 7 is because thank you. That's my dog's like, who are all those people? She's like freaking out. Like, what's going on?
That's funny.
Yeah, she's fun. No, and the reason I'm gonna go back to that 2010 feel again. I feel like you have a group with a lot of experience and a lot of grit, and they're not ready to go out without a fight, and I think they can scrap one out. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being off the grid.
Nah, you're being real.
Very optimistic. Hey, we will take it here on Ref the District. I want to thank you, Sammy, for joining us here as the first lady of hockey. You can catch her hockey coverage out there on Peacock TV. She won't be headed to Florida during this trip, but she'll be staying home, providing us all the great hockey content you need to see. And until next time, be a fan.
Oh, I like that.